Great day, everyone. Great day, everyone. I want to welcome you to another episode of the Talk to Me Chef podcast. And I'm excited today. I'm extremely excited, right? Today, not only at the Talk to Me Chef podcast are we going to get a chance to interview an amazing chef. Here our focus is to inspire our youth that are entering the culinary space, right? Want to get a peek into the life of a chef and just expose everyone to how amazing it is inside of the kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Diamond McNulty, founder and CEO of Chef Diamond and Friends, creator of the Talk to Me Chef podcast. We teach kids how to cook in schools and at home. So if you have any questions, definitely go to chefdiamondandfriends.com and learn more. And today we have a special guest. Here we go. He has 30 years, over 30 years as a pastry chef. Executive pastry, he's been at 6 locations. He's won the Emmy Award, the top 10 pastry chefs in America, founder and CEO of Successful Bakery, and he's helping so many bakeries become successful in business. So I'm excited to bring you in. Come on in, Chef Jimmy MacMillan. How you doing today, Chef? Talk to me,
Hey,
Chef.
good morning, Chef Diamond. How are you? Thanks for having me on. Great day. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
I'm outstanding. I got to thank you for joining me. This is going to be an amazing discussion, but we're going to share some amazing things that you've been doing over the years. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great, and I'm really honored and excited to be talking to you and your audience about just all things pastry, all things culinary. It's great to be here.
Yes, let's take it all the way back, Chef. So before we even get into, your upbringing, what inspired you just to become a chef?
Well, I was inspired to be a musician first, so from a young age. So I had a kind of a side career all the way up until my 20s of playing music. But as we know, sometimes when you're a musician, I would work in a lot of restaurants, like a lot of restaurants. And so I would see, I would be a line cook, short order, just enough to, keep the lights on. And then I would go on the road touring. Well, when I see the pastry chefs, they look like they had a sweet situation because they would be by themselves.
Yeah.
I didn't know they might have been up all night, but they were by themselves. They had some autonomy. They were making beautiful things. So I thought that was interesting. So I kind of migrated to the sweet side and then moved to Austin, Texas to play music. And there were like 20 more bands there. Everyone had like 4 bands. I started working in the pastry shop, and a friend of mine who was a musician was like, "Hey, I'm working at the Four Seasons Hotel." I'm like, "Really? That's crazy. I didn't even know Austin had a Four Seasons." It's like, "Yeah, I'm going to quit to go on tour. The chef's going to be mad at me. If you could go by tomorrow, tell them I sent you. And I think maybe they have a job for you. And that might take the heat off me a little bit, might be a good opportunity for you." So that's really where my serious pastry journey started. I went over there, got hired on the spot, had a good mentor there in pastry.
Wow. Now that's special. And when you think about it, here you are, you're loving in music, but now it's guiding you over to pastry. Now, where were you born and raised? Give us some little insight on your upbringing.
Oh, sure. I'm born and raised in Detroit, West Side, stayed there and through all the winters, all the winters. And now I'm back in Chicago. We got winter again. But really my plan was to play music. And when we would tour, I would get out. I would see, we had a European tour at one point. We were putting out a lot of CDs, so we were pretty active. And I got to see the whole country. And then it kept coming back to Detroit. I was like, I got to get out of this winter situation. And not a lot of not only musicians at that time were getting out of the state, but for me too, as a pastry chef, the way that I do pastry, the way that I did pastry in high-end hotels, and that at that time until recently didn't even exist. So I would not have been able to see any of that if I had not traveled. But that's born and raised right there.
How was that journey all in all, right? Did you get a chance to go back to culinary school? Did you, besides any mentoring, or was it all straight hands-on?
It was all hands on. And to be honest with you, I had that mentorship approach and still believe in that now. I think school is always good. I did a little schooling. I went to school at Oakland University in kind of like northern Detroit, and was part of a program there in music and a little bit in English. And then I thought, I'm not really going to do much with this degree. It's really clear now that that's not the path for everybody. And I can tell you, for me, it was just better hands-on. So like I just worked my way to knowledge. But I will say I was opening books at home. If you see off to my side here, there's all these books. So we're still, educating and reading and watching videos. So if you, whatever path you choose, like, it's not like I just worked and I got better. It's like I worked and I worked on it when I wasn't, working for someone else. And so that
Mhm.
was the path. So took me longer. I came to pastry later, and I try to be good at every area of pastry a little bit, because I would look at the chefs I was working for and I noticed there would be a few areas where they weren't as good as others. Maybe
Mhm.
someone was great with wedding cakes, but not so good at plated dessert, good with chocolate, not so good with something else. And I thought, well, the way to be best at this game is to be a little good at everything, enough that you could manage others or at least collaborate with others. So it took me a little longer. So it's funny you say, like, I've been doing pastry for a long time, and
Yeah.
I'm happy to be kind of old and still doing it. Like, I think that's great. Sometimes people don't want to show their age, but to me, like, if you get to a certain point and you should know something, well, you get there by getting older and working along the way. If you get to I'll be 55 this year. If you get to that age and you didn't learn something, you might have a problem. But yeah, one by one, job by job, and then and self-teaching and finding mentors. I traveled to the best pastry chefs at that time and learned from them. So I didn't do a traditional culinary school path, but I did do some master classes later on with, at that time, who was the best in the world in Barcelona and in parts of France and Switzerland.
Yes, chef. And then I want to just give our audience just a glimpse because, just speaking of all the different creative uh, dishes that you've prepared, I don't think it's coming into life for them right now. So for you to be self-taught, your quality has been like this, right? So
I try
for
to
those,
always keep it there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and so that's a standard in not even going to school. It shows that those books were you were dedicated, you had the work ethic, and you was committed to continuously learning. So that's awesome. Now, throughout that journey, was it mostly you focusing on the path? And I know that you had to develop your own personal life as well. So how did you navigate both?
Well, as I was transitioning from, I still want to be a musician. I had like some success. I was touring, we were getting money for that, and I switched over to pastry. At one point, I could see where pastry would be good for me. I like the arts. It involved a lot of different disciplines I thought I would be good at. But I
Mhm.
had to go all in, and I literally sold all my guitars. Most of them, it's very painful. I had some, if there's any music fans out there, I had some like vintage Jimi Hendrix style Marshall heads and like Sun amps, the stuff from the 60s and 70s that was getting the sound that I wanted. But I think the same thing in everything you choose, you need that commitment. So for me to commit, um, I changed out the materials and changed out the tools of the trade and started buying silicone and making molds and like getting the right tools so that that I could be the best at pastry. So I really went all in at that point after getting a good mentor and seeing the potential of where pastry could be, not only in the United States, but where it was in the world, and how fantastic that field was. And I thought, this is some place I could live for a long time. And I would say that my personal life was a little secondary to that in the
Mhm.
early days, to be able to make sure I could be where I needed to be when I needed to be there. I needed to have that kind of autonomy. So I still dated, I still went out, but it was pretty limited once I realized that it's a competitive field, and we kind of get rewarded in public for what we do in private, that work we put in. So I was putting a lot of work in private, and getting the benefits when I would go out to a competition or go out in public.
Yes, and it's some sacrifices that has to happen in order for you to reach a certain level in anything that you do. So you got rid of the good guitars.
That was painful. That was
That
painful.
is painful, but you went all in. So, what advice right now would you give some young chefs or those that are aspiring to become chefs?
I would say stick with it longer than you want to. And sometimes we have an either or. You know what I found, Diamond, is that we are really not good at balance as people. Like, it's either I'm gonna tip my toes in the water and like, I don't know about this, or I'm gonna go all in, but then when it gets hard, you give up. But the truth for a lot of us, and in relation to becoming a chef, is sort of in the middle, where like the first part seems really hard, but sometimes the very next day is an amazing day, right?
Mhm.
And you get blessed for keep coming back to the situation. And we would do that in service. I don't know if you told everybody, but we've been in the trenches together, right? We were on the line. I was passing plates over your shoulder and you're working on different orders and things. And sometimes you have a bad service, a bad day, bad situations with people. Like I would say, don't let another person keep you away from your aspirations and dreams. So
Mhm.
sometimes the social environment, now I don't want to go back. And you just go back anyway was my thing. And then I became the 2.5 year person. Even as a chef, I would stay somewhere long enough to be longer than the next person. So I
Yeah.
thought by comparison, they're like, oh, 2.5 years, 1.5 years, let's go with Jimmy. But then I started to realize like I needed the ability to stay longer, 5 years, 7 years. And so I'd ask the older chefs who were able to do that, like in the Four Seasons or the Peninsula, like, how were you able to do that? And I think it is as simple as you just keep coming back.
Hello, my name is Diamond McNulty. I'm the executive chef here at Chef Diamond and Friends, and I want to welcome you to our amazing programming. We have at school programming where we have weekly or monthly programming, and we also have our Meet the Chef experience where our chef come out and meet with the students and have book signings as well. At home, we have homeschool throughout the day, we have after school, and we also have family engagements on Friday. So no matter if you're a young chef, mighty chef, or if you're a diamond chef, we want to see you inside of the kitchen. We want you to compete in our champion chef competitions, and we want to have you be featured in our Young Chef magazine. So I look forward to meeting with you, chefs. Visit www.chefdiamondandfriends.com. Can't wait to see you inside of the kitchen. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Mhm.
Because and again, that's where you need a purpose. If the reason you're going back is for someone else, you're going to run out of energy at some point. But if the
Mhm.
reason you're coming back is you and greater than you, then you have that energy to keep coming back.
Yes. How can I be better than I was yesterday? How can I do something? Oh, wow. That's what I'm talking about. Now, and throughout that process, have you ever faced any setbacks in your career that you had to overcome?
Well, of course, I had some physical setbacks. Aside from I would say on the professional side, because of that extra dedication,
Mhm.
I wasn't really set back in terms of escalating my career. I was
Mhm.
able, and I was always like in the business of furthering my career. So if that means I'm always looking for work, and I would recommend everyone go out on interviews, even if you love your job, or especially you're somewhere good, that doesn't mean stop looking at what's out there. For
Yeah.
me, going to another place, even when I'm happy with the job,
Yeah.
makes me appreciate what I have.
Mhm.
Also, I can meet someone and I still might learn something. So I would just kept that going for years and years and years. But I had some physical challenges. I developed a cancer in my leg at one point, and like kind of at the height of my career. I think this is actually kind of interesting, and I don't talk about it much. This is probably the
Yeah.
first time I talked about it. I was afraid to let people know that I had had cancer because I thought I wouldn't get positions again. Because in our field, it's physically demanding, and when you're hired for your skill, but you're also hired, like you were saying, to come back every day and do it again and lead people. And we need to know that you're going to be there. And if your
Mhm.
health comes in question, I thought that might be bad for me. And at the top of my career, when I was receiving awards, I was also having surgery and coming back to work. And I was working probably a little bit after a surgery where they really had a wide resection on my leg. I had a rare sarcoma, and I'm fortunate, I can and talk about those things. And it was a big undertaking and took years to recover. But again, that dedication to the field, at that point, I had a family, so I was trying to
Yeah.
continue to take care of them while healing. So that
Yeah.
in itself was a setback.
Yeah.
And I think I could have easily given up. There are a lot of times when I wanted to give up because it just seems so hard to go back and do it again. So, if it seems hard when you're just starting
Yeah.
sometimes like something big in your life happens, or, you lose a parent or you lose a friend, or
Mhm.
maybe just fatigue, so you got
Yeah.
to take care of yourself. But really it comes back to being really clear on what you want. And when you get that setback, like, know that everything is temporary. And if
Yeah.
I was able to work through that, if I can do that, anyone watching could do that too.
Yes, that is amazing. Now talk about that, the mindset of a chef. Now, right? Let's get into the mindset of a chef.
The mindset of a chef it's super important because I don't think there's one, and I think the understanding of what mindset is now, is much healthier, right? Is much healthier because your mindset could be just competitive, like you're just doing it. I often felt that the only, I would publish work in magazines, and I would be out there winning things, and I often felt like we sometimes were doing it for the other chefs, but we're
Mhm,
forgetting that we're really making experiences for guests. And
mhm.
like that was my true unlock for me, is like I stopped worrying about the competition and the other chefs and started really just focusing on who I'm really there to serve, which is the diner, the guest, the customer, who they're the ones that really get changed by it. And the more I focused on who I was serving, the more the rest didn't matter, because in the building that I was in, all the individuals coming to have dessert were always talking about how great that was. Whereas
Yes.
if I'm focused on beating someone else out, like I don't know how it benefits me. And there's no end to that game. There's always someone else coming up. At the time that I was becoming popular in Chicago, because I had come back to Chicago after like a chef tour around the country,
Yeah.
um, it was really a lot of, in one building at the Peninsula, we had, Curtis Duffy, we had, Graham Elliott, some people at the time who were like giants locally,
Right.
and a lot of other talented chefs trying to follow that path. So like
Mhm.
just straight competition, I don't think was the way. And so the mindset for me is like, why am I here?
Yes.
Continuous improvement, like you just mentioned, dedicated to continuous improvement. And that's a really healthy place to live, because we
Yeah.
say you're only as good as your last dish, right? But you have
Mhm.
infinite, in our field, opportunities to have another dish, to make
Yeah.
another dessert, to just like come right back to it.
Yeah. Yes. And that's why you have to love what you do. Like I love what I do. And then throughout that journey, let's talk about the vision too, because as you begin to get exposed to pastry and you got rid of your equipment and all of that, and you went all in, what was the vision that you had for who you were looking to become?
You can see it still sings like every time I think about those guitars, right? But in reality, like at the time, I just knew it was the right choice.
Yeah.
I think you build it like piece by piece, like
Mhm.
you don't necessarily say it's going to be like this. Every time I have like too close of a vision, it doesn't
Mhm.
really take into account what might happen along the way.
Yeah.
So I do visualize a lot, like this is what this might look like if I was doing a competition. I visualize winning. When I heard that Olympic athletes do these visualizations, I was like, well, that's good. I'll do that. And then when you see that people do reps and they get good results, okay, I got to get to the reps. So the mindset kind of frames the work, but the repetition, moves you closer to it. And so as long as you're directionally correct, you're always going to keep moving, and it doesn't have to be so specific. And the beautiful thing that I want everyone to understand is, if it doesn't work, you can always change it, rather than say
Mhm.
it has to be this way and it wasn't that way and I'm disappointed. It just,
Yeah.
then you now, no matter what we say, smart people and chefs, for me, pastry chefs are super smart, right? I'm kind of biased, but I think pastry chefs should be president, right? They're really organized, right? Makes
Yeah.
stuff taste good. Everyone loves sweets. We got a couple good things going for us, but we always want to solve everything to the end.
Mhm.
And in reality, by the time we get there, a lot of things have changed, and we already know that. So if you're a smart individual, you can understand that you only need to solve the first part of it, to get
Mhm.
started, move in that direction. And then when you get there, you're going to reassess it and move to the next, 20, 30% of it. And so
Right.
in my mindset, I always give leeway for those things that will happen, put in the work, but then just move in the right direction.
Right. Now is what is the biggest misconception of a chef, right? That most people may think.
um, that they're normal people. Though I don't really know if I'm qualified, because you start to realize that you're not the customer for anything anymore. Like once you get to a certain point, like you go and you try everything and you get your idea, you have all those experiences. So I think the misconception, there's a few, and maybe that everyone can do everything. So like you're a pastry chef, you should be able to make blank.
Yes.
But the idea of being a specialist to me is especially important. Where when I was on the hot side, working in those restaurants, a saucier is a great position.
Yes.
As someone that can be specialist in that, and that kind of gets glossed over. An amazing prep cook is a great position to be in. So I think the misconception is that you need to be everything for everybody, and a chef knows everything. And sometimes you feel like you have to give an answer that's right. A beautiful answer is, I'm not sure about that, but let me find someone who knows. We have that chef network.
Yes.
So I think maybe that's the biggest misconception.
Yes, because the culinary world is so big. There's so many
Man.
cuisines, so many
Yeah,
cuisines,
so
so many recipes. It can't fit inside one person, right? So let's just be honest. But it's great when you see those that can specialize in a specific area and then just build it. So, like yourself, as you begin to continue to develop, you became a trendsetter, right? So what's that mindset? How did you do that, right? When you can walk into something and just create.
Yeah, and I did kind of become known as like doing creative things, and I would tell you that was something that I constructed for myself. Like I thought, and this is a little bit from being in the music business first, and like understanding that you have a band and you have an identity, and and now we would say that's brand, right? You're going to develop a brand. I put that out there. I thought, of all the types of dessert and everything we do, I'm very well rounded. I make wedding cakes and chocolate chip cookies and blueberry muffins like everybody else. And I make more of those because that's what people eat every day. But the things that I became known for were the things that very few people ever got to eat in the fine dining, or didn't see, or you would see once a year when you go for like, a graduation or special birthday or something. So I tried to take those special moments and show like, oh, well, plated dessert uses all the craft of pastry. Chocolate, all the different, bake techniques, all this stuff. So I try to promote it that way and say like, this is what I stand for. This is the highest level of pastry that there is. I'm going to share that with people that can't normally go. So I'm going to put that out in magazines and other media, and became like the creative person. But those same desserts, I could put in a 3-layer cake. I do a coconut cake that is just like something I would do in Texas. Down home slice of cake, stacked high, mile high. That's the basis of this creative dessert. So just knowing what you want to be known for, I think is perfect, because you still should learn everything about your craft. But I actually was the one that put out in the world like, oh, I'm going to be this creative chef. Don't let other people define you, I guess is what I would suggest. Pick something that you want to live into, and you're saying that's what I'm about. That's what I'm clear on. I'm clear that I'm the most creative chef doing this one thing. And I would never say I'm the most creative in Chicago. I was most creative back home in Detroit. What I said was I'm a world chef, and everywhere I go, I'm part of this culinary world. And in my corner of the world, I'm a creative chef that does plated dessert.
Yes. And when you think about that too, chef, you're hit it right on the head, because it's a difference, right? And it's a difference between just being a chef and building a business. When you get all into this, how did you transition over from becoming that creative chef to actually stepping into the business side of things?
Well, I think I had some goals early on that seemed unrealistic. Like I want to be a top 10 pastry chef was one. I want to be at this certain level. I want to make a certain dollar amount as a chef. There's an amount of money that I wanted to make, and people would tell me, you'll never make that as a pastry chef. And that's what it was like at some point. And I actually met all those goals.
Yeah.
And then I realized I wasn't dreaming big enough, and I didn't make enough bigger goals. And in pastry, because when I started, I wasn't even a pastry. I learned to make ganache. I was like 26 years old. All these other, students of pastry already knew all that stuff. So I thought these were really lofty goals, right? And they looked really good. So I needed some new goals. At that point, when I had met all those, I was either going to keep getting more awards and keep doing that same thing. But really the journey was the fun part, hard, but fun. Yeah. And then when I got there, I was like, well, do I just keep doing this for ever? Like,
you're right.
Like, and then I looked around what others did after their culinary careers, and they either taught and maybe in a culinary school, and they're coming back now, but we have fewer of those, or they especially in pastry, or they went to work for a food distributor. That's a good job where you're like representing ingredients and talking to chefs.
Mm,
But for me, I didn't want to do those things. I just wanted to be a chef. I just don't want to be a chef,
yeah.
and I wanted to share what I had now learned and had a lot of great experience I thought were valuable. So when I started to talk to others, I did a little bit of consulting and coaching, and it worked out really well for both of us. Like, it was rewarding to give some information, and it was fun to see them have some success based on that. And that's when I said, well, how could I reinvent myself again from a musician to like this pastry chef and plated dessert, doing creative things, to a business person that could still stay a chef. Like, I'll never give that up. Even if I'm like CEO of the company, I'm a chef, right? You're still wearing a chef hat, right? Like, you still, I felt like I earned that. I'm not quitting. I'm not retiring, but I am able to help more people. And again, instead of me helping one guest in a restaurant, I might be helping 5 bakeries and all of their guests as an indirect result.
Yes.
And then I'm very anonymous with who I work for, so they get all the credit.
Yes.
And I just found that that's even more rewarding, just to kind of step out of that part of the trying to compete at all on any level, and then help people.
Yes, and that speaks to who you are as a person. And when you get into a certain level, you don't necessarily need credit, right? It's really on just how many people can I help. Now,
That's
chef, right now, let's talk about Successful Bakery. Give
Okay.
us some backstory to that.
Yeah, Successful Bakery is the business, my consulting business as it is right now. And we really sit with business owners, bakeries at all levels, whether that's small manufacturers on the artisan side or independent bakeries, doing generally it's nicer than average bakeries. It's mostly artisan bakeries. And we work with them on profit. We work with them on the people. We work with them on the structure of the business and systems. We were, up until recently, Pastry Virtuosity. That was my consulting since 2011. But a lot of people couldn't pronounce it. Sometimes I can barely pronounce it. And then it really spoke more like Pastry Virtuosity was more like, I'm a chef, I'm the virtuoso. Again, it was like, Jimmy's a chef. I was transitioning away, and I'm bringing this experience with me, and I'm going to share that experience. But it still seemed a lot like it's about me. And Successful Bakery, I was looking for clarity for potential clients. And I think for us, we found that, because Successful Bakery, there's no confusion of what we're trying to do here. If you have a bakery, we're trying to make you successful. And taking my name out of it. And because I've had success consulting, I felt like I could go the next step and say, like, this exists outside of me, put together a team to support it and kind of grow it a little bit and see how many people we can touch that way.
Right. It's so important for you to be able to cultivate. You're going to help so many bakeries just succeed. Like, how can someone get in contact with you in order to get your services?
Well, I'm pretty easy to find, which is good. On all socials at Jimmy MacMillan, and now you'll see at Successful Bakery. If you search on the web, we have, the good thing, and I would say that to everyone watching, keep putting up videos, keep showing the process, because then when you go back, you have this social footprint that I would tell you, I have a website, we have a new one, we're going to relaunch that. There's not one particular place where that information lives where people should check out, but every time I meet with any individual, I know the first thing they do when I leave is they go do a little search. And if you keep building it now, there's things that I've been building on the web for decades now that at the time seemed like little one-offs, doing a little, chef piece. So everything you do, I would say, just keep staying on the social side, post things, even if it looks ugly or it feels weird, but like that process is so honest. I don't think you can lose, like you just keep putting up the process. And then 10 years later, people will see you grow from where it was difficult to you winning, to you helping, to you changing. And that's, to me, much more interesting than someone that always looks good. And I think everyone's kind of caught up to that now, that the things that we see on social media, we can't trust them, or we know that.
Yes.
But it's hard to have the courage to just be yourself. If you can have that courage, it will really pay dividends.
You hit the nail on the head right there, Chef, because a lot of people are so afraid to even make a post.
Yeah.
No, let's get it out there to the world.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
an offline where you have that human connection with people, but the world is online too. You can reach more people, so you have to be able to create that social footprint. You definitely said that, chef. So don't be afraid to put what you have out there. There's someone that's looking for you. What legacy do you hope to leave in the culinary world, chef?
That's a great question. I know that some individuals have like a really clear path for that. For me, I'm pretty private in my personal life. And so any legacy that I have would be carried on by just being a good father to my kids and having the things they do that are chosen by them. I don't know if any of them would be chefs. They all cook, but we'll see, what they do. Maybe something completely different. I think I'd be happy for them with something that they enjoy. As we said, you have to love it. But for me in particular, I feel like as long as I continue to take care of things the way that I believe is right and help people, I'm not too worried about the legacy. The legacy is going to be good. And I also, in the bigger framework, in 100 years and 200 years and 300 years, I'm not sure that matters. When I think back, even in my own family, like I barely understand and can contemplate a great, great, great grandfather or like all these cousins or, and so I actually tend not to focus on the legacy so much. And especially with modern technology, we're building legacy. Someone could watch this video anytime that it's around. So, and that's another reason, just document it and put it out there and let it have a life of its own. I don't know if I could craft a legacy other than just keep continuing to do good work.
Right. And to continuously put it out there. And I've been focused so much on building your infrastructure when it comes to family to ensure that your story is written, right, chef? Because when not only will others be able to watch it, but they need to be able to read it as well. So we'll talk. We'll talk about that. But I got to thank you, chef. Just sharing your journey and experience in the culinary space from all of the different hotels and places you've traveled, and everyone will get a chance to see what you've created and masterpieces, right? And to have your heart that you have and be so humble, but understand what it takes to be great and be able to share that with so many bakeries and young chefs. I got to thank you again for allowing Talk to Me Chef to share your journey. And I can't wait for everyone to see it. Is there any last minute words that you want to leave with our audience?
Oh, thanks for having me on Diamond to talk to the chef. This has been great. Anyone that wants to reach out to me directly, I might be interested in pastry, please do, ask questions. I feel like sometimes we're afraid to ask too. And I would say what I learned is the most, you speak about humility. When I met the best pastry chefs in the field when I was learning, they were all cool. They were like giving. I asked them questions, they gave me answers. And I found out somewhere in the middle, the people with a little bit of experience kind of game you out and try to like pretend like, oh, this is protected information. I can't really give away my secrets. There's no secrets. So that's what I would say to everyone. There's really no secrets. That information is there. No shortcuts necessarily either. But I would just, again, courage to post, courage to ask, do it anyway. Feel scared, do it anyway. That's the courage is all about, right? It's not like being brave all the time. It's like being scared, do it anyway. And that's what I would say.
Do it anyway. Well, thank you. Thank you again, chef. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see you inside of the kitchen soon too.
All right, let's do it. Anytime you're back in the Chi, come look me up and let's go eat some pastry in the city.
I love it. I love it. So thank you. I'm glad everyone has had a chance to see Chef Jimmy on Talk to Me Chef. And if y'all want to reach out to him, go to Successful Bakery. The information is below. Y'all have a wonderful day. See y'all next time. Take care.